Thank you, sir. So today we're here from Paul Desales and Miryana Valenzuela are to talk about their experience in the 2024 ARF Field School last summer. Miryana Valenzuela is pursuing her BS in Society and Environment and recently earned a BA in Anthropology from UC Berkeley. She currently works as an undergraduate assistant in the Department of Environmental Science, Policy, and Management at UC Berkeley, where she is involved in the Nelson Lab under the guidance of Dr. Peter Nelson. Her research focuses on the role of prescribed fire in improving acorn viability. This work supports the indigenous-led fire management practices, which have historically faced suppression, with the goals of reducing insect pest infestations, increasing foraging opportunities, and sustaining culturally significant acorn crops. Paul Desales is a fourth-year undergraduate student with a focus on archaeology, pursuing his BA in anthropology here at UC Berkeley. He has done work under Professor Kent G. Lightfoot and Christina A. Hasdorf as an undergraduate assistant through the URAP program and has done archaeological work with the Santa Cruz area. Interested within the California Pacific Northwest and Central Mesoamerican region, his specialties include analyzing hunter-gatherer societies, settlement patterns, low-impact archaeology, and native collaboration and stewardship practices and programs, and is currently conducting isotopic research with Professor Hasdorf, analyzing Bolivian maize for his senior thesis. So, thank you and welcome.
And thank you, Professor Wallach, for that introduction here today. I'm going to pull up our story maps here and full screen it so we can start our presentation here. Once again, hi, just like how was wonderfully eloquated, thank you. My name is Paul Desales. I am a fourth year, going to graduate this spring in 2025, if all goes well, which is very exciting myself. And my partner here is...
My name is Miryana Valenzuela, and this is my last semester here, so hopefully you guys decide to keep me around. But yeah, so we'll be talking about our experiences during the field school this summer. We're gonna cover a little bit of the overview of what we did this summer and the importance and the value of having a field school that was accessible to students like ourselves that come from a low income and yeah, giving us the opportunity to actually grow and prepare ourselves for archaeology careers in the future.
So this is the second part to a previous field school that was conducted back in 2022. So we're able to continue on their legacy of what research was conducted. And just like Midi had said previously, one of the main features that I thought was amazing about this field school in particular is how it brought about practicality to students who are not so much around a certain social class, which broadens it up to make it more accessible to students of any kind of class, any kind of background, which is very much needed in the field of archaeology. I don't want to go too much about myself. It's literally almost carbon copy of what Professor Wallach said, so we're just going to skip past it. And this is
same for me.
We can go right into the meat and bones of it all here, no pun intended.
Yeah, so first of all, we would love to acknowledge and thank the people that actually supported us and allowed us to do this field work in the summer. So first of all, we would like to thank the staff of the Peralta in the Historical Park, including Claudia Avano, who welcomed us to field school, gave us a very an introduction and historic overview of the park, and all the neighborhood community who came and checked on our work, got engaged in what we were doing, and asked some questions about our project. And we would also like to thank the UC Berkeley ARF staff for giving us the opportunity to do this field work and for all their guidance that still continues today. So we appreciate that.
We also added the link and we published this story map. We'll include it towards the end of the presentation. And we'll also include the story maps of all our other students' story maps we did at the end of the season, where we go more in depth of what we found, the practices, methodologies we did during the summer season as well. But we also have a land acknowledgement. It's very important to bring it up, and we linked it there too. So please feel free to look more into it as we go along through this presentation. One of the important aspects, though, of archaeology, why we're all here, is why do we do archaeology? What is the big contributor factor? Is it still present and prevalent to today? If not, we'll go through it all. But as you can tell, archaeology is all about understanding the story of the past. It's important to go more and understand that there is more to it than just like material culture. It's not about the prize or possession. What it is learning about different methodologies and different cultures of the past. And it's very important, the saying goes, histories repeat itself. If we have an understanding of that, then maybe we use it to infer and collaborate further for the future as well. One of the key things about the field school, however, that was very important that I personally thought was well done and well needed on my benefit was looking at the research method of actually conducting field work. It's easy to say like, oh, just like Indiana Jones, we're going to go out into the field and explore and find treasure, have great friendships along the way. But there's more to the method. There's a method to the madness, as they say. And throughout the field school, we understood that there's a lot of prep work that goes into it. You don't just blindly dig into a spot, into a square. You have to do a lot of research prior. And the great thing about archaeology mimicking anthropology is it's very holistic. There's a lot of different fields or majors that go into an archaeological excavation or research design. And throughout the field school itself, we had a lot of different guest speakers and lecturers that came in with different backgrounds that just proved how holistic it really is. We had one professor come in who actually was a focus as a historian, and he showed how like looking at it through like a history major lens can actually involve stuff with that. And it just goes on beyond like that. So again, one of the main things I took from this was the start to finish, that they don't teach you in a textbook per se, and that classes may not be able to fit all in one semester. And the start to finish, you know, being the survey, the mapping, documentation. What I really liked was the data analysis, learning about, hey, there's a special kind of language in Excel that you need to learn, and not that many people are fluent in Excel. And it goes beyond just plugging in functions. It's about making data very accessible and being able to actually interpret and read what the actual data has. But besides that, we have our classic excavation methods, artifact identification, and interpretation.
Yeah, so as Paul was saying, a lot of our work regarding the field work was based on research questions and understanding the past, the present, and how we can apply all these methods for the future. Understanding how everything interacts with everything surrounding the environment. As far as the Peralta Hacienda Park, we have a brief history here. We know that the park is what remains of a 45,000 acre parcel of land granted by Governor Sola as part of the Spanish land grant to the Peralta family. And this was, we wanted to do field work to recognize the efforts of the park that the park has taken to memorialize the history. And we invite everyone who is in this talk to take a look at the website and visit the museum to learn more about the history of the park. And as far as our field project, we, like Paul mentioned, we were following kind of like the trend from the 2022 field school, and we created some research questions to guide our projects and our units. So we wanted to address what daily life was the Rancho San Antonio in the 1840s and the present, and we were trying to figure out what the artifacts could tell us about the history of the park. What were some things that they were eating? How were they interacting with each other, with the environment? What was happening around that time? So yeah, and we also wanted to see how much the landscape had changed over time.
As we go more into our methodologies during this field season, we'll first like to start off by saying that each unit, a total of 3, they're going to be labeled Unit 3, Unit 4, Unit 5 as we progress. Each unit was dug to a maximum depth of 50 centimeters below the datum. And we also use rules such as superposition and different methodologies that will go more in depth to hopefully answer these research questions that we developed prior to the start of the excavation. And as we continue forward, it comes to my favorite part, and I would like to first start off by thanking Nico himself, who showed all of us who participated the beauties of QGIS And with that, I'll say I will apologize here out. I do not like QGIS. And if you do not have to work with it, I'm going to just shout out ArcSys. I like ArcSys. But to each their own, as we see here with my title, XY marks the spot. That's a little map humor, which is very funny to use. We could see here is the actual landscape between old historic maps that we have in the archives to the present day, just normal Google Earth GPS. As I alluded to earlier in the presentation, one of the main concerns is how do you begin? Where do you decide where you want to dig? You can't just haphazardly just dig wherever you think is good. You don't just go walk up to a spot and be like, I think there's going to be something very significant here. Let's start here. It's very holistic in the approach, and to do a kind of mimic a low impact archaeology kind of methodology, you got to really hone in and decide and do prior research as to where you should begin your excavation. In this case, we use a lot of different types to impact, to use a more low impact approach by using past mapping data that we had from the prior 2022 season, as well as field and GPR data. So georeferencing to the past, here is one of the fun systems here. We were able to get an old 1951 Sanborn fire insurance maps. And we can see prior in the day, there were 3 plots of lands, 3 houses there. And if we scroll and move it towards a more physical part of the day, we can see the actual Peralta Hacienda Park structure right there. And we're able to use a combination of, again, QGIS and ArcGIS to geo-reference between the two, and so you can give us a more spatial awareness of where we should begin our excavation. That in turn also comes into the other holistic approach, is looking at past 2022 field excavation data here as well. The first 2 units back in 2022 that was dug was Unit 1 and Unit 2, as you can see here. And we were able to use that prior knowledge of where it was located in the past to influence us where we wanted to put our new units now. So we can see we have a combination of Unit 3, Unit 4, and Unit 5, which was dug in this 24 season. And you can see georeferencely where they are in relation to the past units of Unit 1 and Unit 2. These were the reasons why we chose to open up Unit 3, 4, 5 in conjunction to Units 1 and 2. Another very interesting thing that we'll go more of later on, though, is of all the units, Unit 3 was probably the most prolific, had the most artifact recovery in it as well. And it's for a good reason, too. If you can see each of the plot points here that was conducted by the total station, and we'll get more into total station methodology later on as well, were pinpoint areas where important artifacts were dug up. And you can see this directly refers to prior Unit 2. So in the past, Unit 2 was conceived to be something of a trash pit. And you can see that there's a clear boundary that was created here. There's a prolific amount of artifacts found in this inner circle. You can see the curve there. But as you progress outside the curve, besides some of these other points there, it went sparse. So it showed that there was a clear boundary there, that Unit 3 may have been potentially in an area where a trash pit was located. And similarly, there was other relationships that we did for the other units. For Unit 4 itself, there's a potential wall feature that hugged Unit 1. And in the past, Unit 1 had and mapped out this potential wall feature here that may have dug into Unit 4. And when we dug Unit 4, we dug it in a way to see if the wall feature would continue or not. And here's a spoiler alert, it did not continue. It was anything significant whatsoever, but that's the fun of archaeology, am I right? That's why we're all here today. Another separate issue was Unit 5 was its own specific source. Unit 5 was not conducted in a way that was reflected with the past 2022 data, but it was chosen for a specific reason. So Unit 5 was conducted through our GPR, and here I would like to thank Scott here for helping us through the GPR process here as well. And we have a fun little action shot of our past member, Victoria. She's not here, but shout out to her for pushing along the GPR, having a grand old time, right? In our case, for the GPR, we use a 25 centimeter transect spacing and also 50 centimeter transect spacing to mimic what was potentially there in the past. And we were actually able to map out this right here. I don't know if you can see it too well, but there was a big hit right here when we geo-referenced it. there's a change in elevation as it pinged down. And that was one of the main reasons why we decided to open up Unit 5. But I keep talking about the methodologies. It's going to be Miri's turn to actually explain what these methodologies are so we can actually understand what was conducted.
Yes, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. You guys can see a lot of this, but during the first weeks of our field school, we went to the park and we walked around and we did what is considered pedestrian survey. We walked across the area to look for clues like artifacts or whatever we could find on the ground that could give us a hint that there was something that we should be looking at, or like referencing with the mapping, with the GPR, and like as Paul mentioned, there are always clues in the ground. So that was pedestrian survey. We also used GPR, which is a low impact method that uses electromagnetic waves in order to scan the features like concrete, metals, asphalt, and pipes. And we used this trying to figure out where we could find those, the wall feature. We also found a lot of pipes underground that we were very excited about, but we didn't excavate on those. And then we also used the Sokia Total Station, which allowed us to record or points or reference the locations of the artifacts that we were finding as we were excavating each unit. Of course, other skills that we learned during the field school is how to take proper notes, how to collaborate with our teammates to figure out what approach to take, and learn about the soil. So we also use the color chart, Munsell color chart, to figure out the color of the soil and learn what the soil can tell us about activity in the ground.
And if I can just jump in as well here, we can see our amazing field director helping us set up the toll station as we speak. That's another very important method that I was greatly appreciative that we learned how to do. It actually takes a lot of work to set up a toll station. And there was many days in the field where it was not an easy thing that took many, many trials and errors to, but that's part of the experience. If you're not an archaeologist that has ever had trouble with a toll station set up before, are you really an archaeologist? Let's think about that. Again, other methodologies we went over included the actual physical excavation part. Trial and error is a good fun phrase to use, and learning about proper trial techniques there. That's a mouthful to say. There's a lot of T's, but we also went through different screening processes that went over different ways where after we collected our buckets, which was also very important to learn how to properly record. And that's another technique that you think is very common, but it's actually very important, learning how to record as you progress throughout the field season, because that's how mistakes and missed data happens as well. But besides that, we also went over the active flotation, which is very simple, but it's also very complex in its ability as well, where heavy stuff sinks to the bottom while the lighter material and artifact floats to the top. And that's how we're able to sort and separate those artifacts as well.
We also worked out our arms doing a lot of screening during the field work.
And now to the fun part is we're going to go over the different archaeological findings that we actually had this season.
Yeah, so in total, we excavated 3 total units in a period of 2 weeks. We collected artifacts ranging from glass, metal, faunal, plastic, and other items that we found along the way. These artifacts, of course, were cleaned and analyzed in the lab. As you can see in the photo here, this is from our unit. I believe this is unit 3. And you can see a piece of ceramic, a bone, and then I believe that was a piece of brick that was in one of our units. So we were trying to figure out, we were about to record this using the total station.
And another fun area was to look at the different stratigraphy levels. And Unit 5 by far had one of the cleanest walls conducted. So I wanted to give them props as well. And they were one of the few units that were able to show the differential and change in soil. But as we go more into the actual artifacts, we have a graph that goes over the weight and volume for the densities between each different kind of artifact types that we found. So we found a difference of ceramic, faunal, funnel including shells, glass, metal, miscellaneous plastics. And we can see by overall, amazingly, Unit 3 had the most, especially in the grand total area. Like, wow, I was personally in Unit 4, and we had a little bit of plastic and metal, but man, if you worked in Unit 3, this one, we had one bone. Yeah, that's true. We did have one bone. But if we also look at it by counts, which is also important to see per the leader, again, Unit 3 storming off here. And we're going to go over the different types of artifacts that we did find, because this is the exciting part, right? So
yeah, so I guess very exciting. We found a drinking glass. So this was also from Unit 3. And at the beginning, we thought it was a bottle, but then obviously once you pull it out, we realized it was a glass. But another interesting find was a corroded chain. And we guessed that it was likely used for horse riding, since the history of the park seems to indicate that. But of course, do not hold us, do not believe that this is fully true. And then another finding from Unit 3 is an axe head, possibly a broad hewing axe or ship carpenter's axe. And of course, a metacarpal bone of cow. So that gives us a clue about like what people were eating around this area.
And the very interesting part of and analyzing these different types of artifacts, we had different guest speakers who were experts in the different types of artifacts we found as well, giving us and help guiding us on the identification process. And what was the interesting thing about the metacarpal of the cow is, why is a cow bone even being in the unit in the first place? There's not that much cultures that use like a toe bone or metacarpals at all in like a foodways or culture. So it was interesting to see that that specifically was well maintained there. But besides that, there was also...
Yeah, so this is the piece of ceramic that you guys saw in the previous photo. And this also, as part of our analysis during the field school, we had to look and see if we could find any marks on the ceramics to figure out where they were coming from and, you know, when they were made. So as part of, obviously as part of the field school, and one of the lessons that we take home is the fact that this archaeological project gives us clues about how future research might look like, and what the following, hopefully, field school can use from our work in the 2022 to create their own questions and investigate and excavate the unit. So we also think of archaeology and projects like this one as part of like a bigger, something bigger, something larger, because we want to involve the community and do outreach. Archaeology should not be just focused on your own personal research. I think it's very important that we involve the people where we're excavating and get to know who they are, what they want to learn about the area they live in. And so also this kind of work helps us interpret the past. We all have unique contributions and outlooks to on personal stories and stories about a particular area. So we believe that members of the community are a valuable asset, and designing a project with their help is always extremely important.
One of the more fun items that we went over as well was looking at more historical aspect that archaeology can bring. And this was done by utilizing old census data. And we conducted a slew of actual census identification and investigation to learn about the earlier plots of lands in the old fire Sanborn maps back in 1951, that there were indeed residents there. These are not just fake fixed points in history. This was a living, breathing culture. And we linked to the work of Cleo and Michael here for you guys to delve in deeper, because they went through a slew of great investigation to learn about the actual history of the people that lived there at Peralta during that time. But one of the things we definitely wanted to end on was the value of having an accessible field school is to begin with.
Yeah, so like we mentioned before, public archaeology is extremely important. In this field school, we definitely learn all the stages of an archaeological project, starting from beginning, a research question, the kind of methods you choose to use, how to properly excavate, and also, you know, gain hands-on experience in the ways that archaeology can be used as a tool for public engagement. We definitely had a lot of different personal experiences with people who were around the park. It was during the summer, so there was a summer camp, and we had a lot of kids coming and asking questions as far as like what we were doing, what are you finding, are there any dinosaurs in there? So it was very nice to actually be able to explain to them what we were doing and how important the history of this park is for them and for the community, and to learn it and be engaged in it. Of course, the other thing is teamwork and professionalism. During the entire 6 weeks, we had guest speakers who guided us and told us, shared their experiences in the field, in the professional setting. And as part of this whole project, we were also tasked with presenting our findings to the community so they could also learn what we did. And to experience the real life scenario of like presenting and being there and getting to answer questions. And of course, I would say that one of my favorite experiences was the teamwork aspect of this field school. Our field school had about 10 people, 10 students. We were all different. We all came from different backgrounds, and it was awesome to learn from everyone. And to share our own experiences, try to navigate the complexities of archaeology together. And yeah, if you want to take the last one.
Yeah, so another aspect of having a field school that's readily available to any kind of students, regardless of background, is very important, especially in this day and age. If you are finishing anthropology with your BA and are pursuing a career in archaeology down the line, regardless if it's in an academia setting, in cultural resource management or CRM, or if you're working more with states, state parks, federal, any kind of agencies such as that, most of the time they do require a field school under your belts. And for the most part, there are a slew of different field schools readily available. However, they do cost money and tuition, a lot of times not counting different expenses that occur along the way. I think typically on average, a field school will average around $4,000. Again, not counting airfare, not counting any kind of stay, maybe some food here and there if you're lucky, find a good field school. And what here at UC Berkeley, and specifically here at the ARF, was able to bring towards us, and it was not only limited to UC Berkeley, but the entire surrounding area, as we had students from CSU SF as well, and
East Bay.
East Bay as well.
Santa Cruz.
UC Santa Cruz, see, not just here at UC Berkeley. It opened it up, and they actually paid us stipends. In this case, we were paid a good amount of stipends that we can focus on and not worry about the cost of living, which is high. And as a student who is working part-time personally, as well as conducting my education here and finishing up, it was so much, I had so much gratitude towards that opportunity to be able to have a field school under my belt, regardless of my own background as well, and actually obtain and get the needed skills. So as I go down the line in the future, I do have a chance in a career down the line as well. And I believe Sarah linked to myself and Miri this wonderful article that was just published recently on the SAA about the benefits of having field schools be readily available. And it's a great read. I highly encourage it. I linked it there as well. Again, please come back and enjoy the links as we continue down the line.
Yes, and please support field schools.
And besides just what we see on paper itself, it goes more than just learning how to dig a hole. You learn, again, the different slew of methodologies, which from start to finish has a lot of research. One of the big things that I personally took, again, was learning how to interpret data. It's very hard to actually learn how to be able to read an Excel spreadsheet, and learning how to accurately actually write within the spreadsheet is important too, because if your research gets continued down the line and then they have to look back on what you did, if they can't read it, then it's honestly for nothing at that point. And I hear some laughing because I've understand the frustration of going back, trying to find what the past research data says, and it's very hard to learn. So little things like that they don't teach you, that you don't see on face value, the importance I was able to get from this field school. And again, we just want to say thank you to EB, our field director, who is here in the room right now. Round of applause to EB, honestly, helping guide our young minds. Carla, who's not here, who is our excavation director. She's going on to bigger things. A slew of different professors and educators that helped us, such as Sarah, such as Nico, such as Scott.
Yeah, amazing guest speakers as well.
Christine, everyone who helped guide, and all the guest speakers that we have, and also to our fellow students that we're able to learn and grow close bonds.
We miss you guys.
So thank you guys. Yes.
Okay, so I'll go first.
A little bit of bias there. I won't say it.
Great talk. Really a great project. I've been really impressed, with the work that you guys were doing this summer. So I'm just curious, it's tough oftentimes to date materials very well. That's always tough. But do you think you have in that area of where you're excavating much evidence of the actual Mexican period Peralta Rancho? Do you think there was anything there that actually was part of that earlier historical development, or is it mostly later materials? I'm just curious about that in terms of just the kinds of materials you were finding.
Well, we purposely didn't want to dig too deep during our excavation area, so we stayed more towards the historical period.
Okay. So it's more
definitely more down the line, latter history of it. We did have some porcelain that was able to get dated correctly.
Yeah, I think
there's ceramics from the 50s in every context.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
there's some slightly older ceramics as well, and then the bottom stuff that they showed is weird for the 50s and 60s, but it's with plates.
Yeah.
They were able to do a great job dating. So
yeah. Yeah. No, that's great. Anyway, hey, well done.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. That was really fun to see. So I have a hypothetical question for you.
Yes.
So next year, let's say you guys are directing the field season. You're directing the field school. Based on the methods that you learned and your experiences there, where would you dig next and why?
I have a very biased answer as, again, a recipient to Unit 4. And I could definitely scroll to Unit 4. Oh, man, I was waiting for this question. I definitely want to see. Unit 4 had a lot of anomalies that was very strange that we just did not have time in the season to explore further, and didn't have time in this presentation that I was even able to mention. For one, there was a single strand of shoestring that was dug in that unit that continued down and did not end, and we couldn't find the source of it. And it was well intact, which is very strange there as well. But again, we also said that there is a wall feature, and the material of the clay there did change, and it did suggest that there was something more solid there that we couldn't see where it would continue. I would suggest in the future maybe moving more towards like northwest over there to continue to see if the wall continued to progress in that upper left-hand corner. But that's my personal bias of where I want to keep digging, but we just didn't have the time to continue.
Yeah, for me, I was in Unit 3. So we were finding all the fun artifacts in Unit 3. And when we reached the end of the excavation, we actually found a bottle that was like looking and staring at us. And we were like, oh my gosh, we have this beautiful thing here. We can't really touch it. So I would continue expanding probably in the trash bed to see what else we can find in there. And see what else we can learn about the activities that were happening around this area.
So I think we did choose great units as our source for this field season. It's just time. And I feel like that's just very typical archaeology, time. But yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Oh, any in the chat? I didn't think about that. That is very smart. Okay. Let's see. Nothing in the chat, which is awesome. Yes.
Well, thanks very much. I really enjoyed your presentation. So
Thank you.
when I run my field school in Japan, setting up the total station was obviously one of the challenges. Another big challenge was distinguishing soil stratigraphy. And that's one thing that you learn in a textbook, but until you go to the field,
Yeah.
you don't really get the sense. So my question is, to what extent were you able to get the sense of different soil texture, looking at profiles, your experiences, what kind of future training might be useful in addition to what you learned?
No, yeah, that's perfect. Thank you. That was one of the things that was highlighted to us in the field was everything on paper makes sense, but until you're physically there, get the hands-on experience. And the experience that I was able to learn is it's a lot about the senses as well. It's not just visual as well, but you actually get the feel of it as well with your trowel. Unit 5 themselves actually had really good stratigraphy data themselves. They had a presentation that went more in depth that we just couldn't include with time, where they were able to actually make their own matrix and see about the different kind of changes in the soil as they went further deeper down. My personal experience with Unit 4 was very consistent, not significant whatsoever, but it was important. It was important to get that feel of very just compact clay soil throughout the whole way. But we were able to see what Unit 5 was conducting and get a feel ourselves through them as well. They're like, oh yeah, come look at this unit. You'll see actual examples of the different changes in the strata levels. But it was, again, learning more about senses, getting a hands-on experience, like you said, that's very important. I'm glad I was able to learn from that.
Yeah, I would say that personally, I think for me, that's another reason why I value this field school, because we had such a small group and we had such our field directors who were very engaged. So every time we would see something that we were unsure about, we could always rely on their knowledge to come and kind of explain to us what it could mean, where we have to be careful digging. And I think that's extremely important, because if you don't have that guidance, it's hard for you to make the right decision, and you might actually just dig thinking that there's something there, and then you just destroy the whole stratigraphy. So I think that was very important, and I think that also highlights the fact that you need to collaborate with whoever you decide to work with, because some people will have more knowledge than you do, and you have to be humble about it, and you have to ask questions, and not just assume that you have the right answers all the time. So I think for me, I would say that, yeah, that was amazing. I learned a lot from everyone.
Thanks so much to both of you for sharing this. It's really great to hear about your experiences. The Peralta Hacienda Historical Park, as you know, is really in a very sort of a dense neighborhood with a lot of people coming through, and they're really active in the community with various groups, I guess, that are all part of that community and that neighborhood. And so I know when you guys were all there, you were doing a lot of discussion with people who came through the park, just walking their dogs, or neighbors who visited, or kids who were at the park in programs. And so moving forward, having engaged a lot with those various community members, do you have ideas about what good outreach to those communities would be about the work that you did, in addition to sharing something like this? Are there other ways that you could see giving back to that community, or doing something at the Peralta Hacienda that would be more sort of permanent, to talk about this work?
I believe that a really good question there as well. Really good questions all around. I think community outreach, like you said, and collaboration is very important. And we were lucky enough during the time of our field season, like was previously said, there was a summer camp for kids going on there at the moment. The fact that they were very interested and constantly hovering over us like a parent, what are you guys up to? What are you doing? And very interested and involved and curious, which I think is very important. I want to see personally something that goes more towards that community, towards the younger generation. I feel like we can easily have a special day of experience to teach proper archaeology and go over how history tells us, because it's a very exciting stuff. It's exciting for a reason. It's why we're all here to begin with, to learn the story of the past. We were able to do an interview as well with with the same summer camp group. They posted onto their Instagram story where they interviewed an archaeologist, and they conducted an interview with different student members there during that summer. And I think that's great outreach as well, to get the name out. Here's what we're doing. Here's the history behind it, because they're able to learn more like, hey, where I'm staying, this park that I just go to every other Friday, there's a lot of value in it, and there's going to be a lot of cultural value. And teaching them at the young age what the value of culture is, I think, is very important.
Yeah, also as part of the presentations that we did, one of our group members did actually story maps talking about archaeology and how to teach it to kids. So I do think that that is a great example of how we can use what we learn in this field school and take it to the next level, and maybe even have the students teach what they learn after their experience art. Yeah, so that one should be linked to the story map as well.
Any other questions?
Oh, I saw a hand.
Also, we want to say that if anybody has questions about our experiences and wants to learn more about the work that we did, or wants to apply to field school and they need help, sharing their experiences, we're here for you, and we are here to support you. So we want to help and reach out. So don't fear.
Thank you.
All right, well, thank you so much, Paul and Mary, for sharing your experience.